Back here on CBS Sports HQ, Big Ten Media Days are upon us. Kicks off tomorrow from Vegas, and you are looking at the first couple of weeks for the Big Ten on CBS, the schedule. We have week 1, Penn State welcoming Nevada to town. We have Oregon, the reigning Big Ten champs, taking on Oklahoma State in week 2. Purdue and USC and Lincoln Riley, can they get it together this season? That is week 3. And then Nebraska and Michigan, year 2 for Sharon Moore. That is week 4 on CBS. And of course, we have a full crew heading out to Las Vegas to bring you the very latest coming out of Media Days. 18 different teams taking the podium to preview the upcoming season. But a lot of eyes are going to be on the defending champs, and that belongs to the Ohio State Buckeyes. So if Ryan Day and company can pull off another national title, they're going to be making some history. So they would be the first Big Ten team to win back-to-back natties since Michigan State did it in the 60s. The Big Ten overall as a conference looking to win 3 straight natties for the first time since the 40s when we saw Minnesota, then Ohio State. And so we know for the Buckeyes, beating Michigan is probably just as important as winning a national title. So of course, that is going to be another huge question mark for the Buckeyes again as we enter this upcoming season. All right, let's welcome in our college football analyst, Brad Crawford, here for a Big Ten Media Day preview. Ohio State, no Will Howard under center there. It's Julian Sayin, Brad. He is expected to win the job despite Ryan Day declaring that the QB competition is neck and neck prior to the spring game. So how do you feel about the Buckeyes quarterback situation as they're trying to go out there and win back-to-back national titles?
They certainly have a talented player in Julian Sayin, redshirt freshman who Nick Saban signed last cycle before he transferred last January to Ryan Day and the Buckeyes. They have placed a wealth of talent around the quarterback position at wide receiver. Obviously, you've got Jeremiah Smith, the best player in college football, coming back at that position. But, Jacqueline, that's about it. There's a bunch of new starters elsewhere along the offensive line. The backfield is brand new. The defensive front has 4 new starters for Ohio State. Really, Caleb Downs at safety is the only well-known player on that defensive side who's coming back after playing majority of snaps last season. So, as you mentioned in the opening, Big Ten trying to do what it hasn't done in a long time with 3 consecutive national championships. But if Ohio State is the team that tries to go back-to-back, it's going to be tough. This is a brand new team. They open against Texas, the preseason SEC favorite. So Ohio State, at least early, is going to have its hands full.
Yeah, no matter if there's a lot of question marks, we know that the wide receiver position, that is one constant thing. It is wide receiver U for a reason there over at Ohio State. Let's shift to Penn State. We saw them on our schedule on CBS and within the first 4 weeks. They have their same quarterback this upcoming season. It's a totally different situation. They have Drew Aller, and there are high expectations once again for James Franklin and the Nittany Lions, in part because of that, because they have some familiarity right at the quarterback position. So do you think this squad, as the roster is right now, poised to meet those high expectations?
I think it's certainly possible, if not expected, because this is the best roster Penn State's had on paper in James Franklin's tenure, really the last couple decades. They're able to convince essentially all of their top-end juniors to return, besides Abdul Carter at the edge, a top-5 pick. And that starts with Drew Aller, 2,000-yard rushers in Singleton and Katron Allen. If you're a Penn State fan, you're hoping this team can just simulate to the end of the regular season and get back to the playoff where they lost last season in the semifinal to Notre Dame. Ohio State has been James Franklin's nemesis, and the Nittany Lions have to go to Columbus in November, which I think, Jacqueline, is the first of 2 matchups we're going to see between Penn State and Ohio State this season.
All right, yeah, Ohio State not only playing spoiler to Penn State, but we saw them do that to the Ducks, the reigning Big Ten champs last season. It's kind of similar to Ohio State. Oregon has another sort of unproven quarterback situation, if you will, in Dante Moore, and they had a fantastic regular season. Started 13-0 for the first time in program history, and then circling back to the Ohio State of it all, they get smoked in the CFP quarters by the Buckeyes after getting that bye. So how do you kind of ensure that doesn't happen in those big moments? Because regardless of what we saw in the regular season, we saw what happened coming off of that bye in the CFP, Brad.
Yeah, I was on the sideline in January for that loss to Ohio State, and man, you could just feel the disappointment in that Oregon locker room and sideline after going undefeated in the Big Ten first season, only to lose in the quarters to Ohio State. Like you said, this is a brand new team, similar to the Buckeyes. Dante Moore, new starting quarterback. They lost Evan Stewart, their top returning wide receiver in the spring, to a knee injury. He's going to miss most of the year. So for me, I think Tulane transfer running back Mekhi Hughes is the biggest impact player and has to be for Oregon to get back to Indy and make it to another Big Ten championship game. The good news for the Ducks is the schedule is relatively favorable by Big Ten standards. The Ducks don't play Ohio State or Michigan during the regular season, and Penn State is the only game that I have right now with Oregon as a betting underdog. So I do think Oregon gets back to the playoff, but this is a very, very different team. Dante Moore at quarterback. You see their first 4 weeks of the season pretty favorable before you go to Happy Valley and have to deal with a wideout at Penn State.
And just a reminder, September 6th against Oklahoma State, you can watch that matchup on CBS. It feels like all roads kind of come back to Ohio State, right? Because aside from beating Ohio State, for Michigan, it was a down year by their standards, right? Especially coming off of that natty, 2 seasons ago. How do you think Michigan can bounce back in year 2 under Sharon Moore?
Yeah, I'm not selling on my stock in Sharon Moore just yet because, as you said, they beat Ohio State. They also beat Alabama and USC last season. How many college football teams in the last 10 years can say that they've beaten 3 elite programs in the same season? And they did so with no offense. The Wolverines believe they have fixed that issue with 5-star quarterback Bryce Underwood. They won his recruitment and signing over LSU and Brian Kelly this offseason. Michigan has a future star at the position. I do think he is going to be QB1 for the Wolverines. They have pushed all their chips to the table in Bryce Underwood being a savior of sorts for that program. And I think that this is going to make or break Sharon Moore's tenure. Michigan is going to be an improved team, and if Bryce Underwood in year 1 as a true freshman can be an impact player, I think Michigan can be a competitor in the top tier of the Big Ten.
Yeah, shout out to Tom Brady, right, for kind of making that happen and having Bryce Underwood go to Michigan. Finally, let's go to USC, right? They're coming off of a 7-6 season, the fewest wins in Lincoln Riley's head coaching career. He's 15-13 in his last 28 games at USC after starting 11-1 once upon a time. So how hot is his seat? We love to talk about that, right, in terms of college football, but how much pressure do you feel like he really is under for this upcoming season?
There's a ton of pressure considering you're in L.A. where Luka Doncic and LeBron James and Shohei Ohtani, all those guys are on the billboards, not Lincoln Riley in Southern Cal. He has to get USC back to being an annual power to steal some of those headlines on the West Coast. But my question is, at what point will Lincoln Riley field a defense at USC that's capable of winning big-time games in the Big Ten? We saw last season the Trojans got eaten up at times by a tough Big Ten schedule. They've got a new quarterback. Lincoln Riley has a big buyout, and while that buyout's huge, I do think he's on the hot seat. And if he goes, 5-7, 6-6, fails to live up to expectations this fall in LA, that might be a huge college football coaching vacancy at season's end.
And we saw it there, 4-10 against AP ranked teams. So you got to be good against the best of the best in college football. Brad, we certainly appreciate it. Getting us pumped for Big Ten Media Days as they are upon us from Vegas. And again, kicks off tomorrow, July 22nd. We'll be hearing from Illinois, Indiana, Maryland, Nebraska, Ohio State, and Rutgers. To kick things off, we're sending a full crew out there, including Jenny Dell, the Cover 3 guys, all of that. We have everything you need to know from Big Ten Media Days coming your way. We got you covered right here on CBS Sports HQ.